Okay, before we start, we have to put up this copyright here because what I'm going to do is do a commentary. But before I start, I just want to say that I'm not a YouTuber and I don't make videos. But I did have a discussion in a debate with this self-proclaimed Berean guy. He goes by the name Berean Perspective Apologetics. And this is going to be a commentary that him and I had a discussion. So let's get this copyright up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, primarily what.
So what started all this is he had a debate with another Jehovah's Witness, and I'm just letting him know what he did poorly. That debate he did with the brother, especially with this debate that he had with me, I think he did poorly. He didn't do a good job, and you'll notice throughout the video, he did not answer not one question. In contrast with me, you'll see that I was very direct when he asked me a question. But you decide, and you make that decision on your own as you watch the video.
I wanted to go over that video that you did with the brother that you did in South Africa.
Okay, let's discuss that one with that guy
So,
over there. Sure.
yeah, I did too. What um, respectfully, the points that you were making were weak. I didn't find them
Okay.
convincing at all. And
Okay.
when the brother was discussing it with you, um, I don't know where the disconnect was. What point is it that you weren't getting at primary John 1:1 through when you were.
Immediately, immediately, admittedly, I did have a lot of connection issues. So
In the point of all things that Christ
Yeah.
brother.
You're
So
kind
primarily
of
those
breaking
points
up
that you made.
yourself right now. Sorry about that. You're kind of starting to break up on your end. Or are you on Wi-Fi? Or are you on straight internet?
Yeah, I'm on Wi-Fi. I rebooted my
Okay.
modem just to make sure this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are we
No
clear?
worries. Right now, yeah, you just had a couple of moments, unfortunately, where I didn't hear you for like 3 or 4 seconds. So happened about
Okay.
3 times. So you're not in
Okay.
Africa. You don't sound like you're from Africa.
In America.
Unfortunately, he had a very bad connection. That was one of the really sad parts about having that chat with that guy over there. I really enjoyed talking with him.
we spent about 20 minutes trying to get to know one another and discussing about another YouTuber that I had, which he would be nameless. But the meat of this is, let's see, we could start at 1846.
Jehovah's Witnesses was forming. A lot of things that people were saying about Jehovah's Witnesses. They brought forth some books like Walter Martin, um,
Yeah, I've got some of
Hank,
those behind me.
Hank Hanegraaff, Rob Bowman, and
Right.
different other scholars too.
Bowman, that's
And
an old school one too. Wow.
yeah, so I read those material, and I do understand what the Watchtower Society says about staying away from those books because
Right.
they tell half truths. And Walter Martin, he was a really persuasive guy. Watching his videos, reading his books, but he tells half the truth. Really, he tells half the truth, and he's so a disappointment. To me, he disappoints me. So, for example,
Hmm.
in his Kingdom of the Cults book, he misquotes Raymond, not Fred France during a court case
Okay.
when he was stating his credentials, whether he knew how to translate, was in Genesis chapter 2 verse 4. So the transcript says,
Before I continue, this is what Kelly said about me regarding this. what he states is I misrepresented.
Hey guys, hey, welcome to Brain Perspective.
I misrepresented Walter Martin. This is what he says.
Hope to be sincere, to be genuine and real. Again, like this George guy, I don't know who he is, but now on Facebook, he's saying all kinds of weird stuff now. He's Mr. Debater over there too, apparently. And so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'll talk to him again. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. But the point is, he had an agenda.
Your videos have an agenda.
When he came onto my channel, he had some stuff prepared, obviously.
And you had 2 weeks to prepare, which you weren't, which you will see in the video.
He made some false accusations against Walter Martin. I didn't respond to all that either.
Now you heard that, right?
An agenda. When he came onto my channel, he had some stuff prepared, obviously. He made some false accusations against Walter Martin. I didn't respond to all that either.
False accusations against Walter Martin. What I said was nothing but facts. So unfortunately, he didn't research what we had discussed. But let's continue on. See, we left off at... We left off in... Let's see...
The cross-examination, the lawyer asked Franz, can you translate this text?
Right.
Genesis, when I just read it. And he said, you mean this
Right.
text? He said, yes, this text. And
Right.
he said, Franz says no. And then Walter Martin leaves it at that. But the actual transcription says this. The lawyer asks, can you translate this Hebrew text into English? And then Franz says, no, I won't attempt to do that. When you qualify that, that is saying
Lost you there for a minute. Sorry.
disingenuous. Yeah, he was disingenuous of making it out that France cannot translate from the Hebrew. He didn't say no, he couldn't. He said no, I won't attempt to do that.
So to get you a perspective on what we're talking about is this book right here, The Kingdom of the Cults. Do you see that, Kelly? What does it say? The Kingdom of the Cults. And who is it by? Walter Martin. So if we look at page 121 in the electronic book, but it's in page 124 in the actual book, this is what it says. Later, during the same cross-examination question, this is when a lawyer is questioning Franz. You yourself read and speak Hebrew, do you? Answer, I do not speak Hebrew. Question, you do not? No. Can you yourself translate that into Hebrew? Which? The 4th verse of the 2nd chapter of Genesis. You mean here? Yes. No. Do you see that? Do I need to zoom in? Okay. What is this? This is the Wash trial. The Wash trial shows something differently from what Walter Martin quoted. If we look at page 102, and this is the cross-examination, similar to what Walter Martin was saying, right? And here we go, we can start right here. You yourself read and speak Hebrew, do you? Answer, I do not speak Hebrew. You do not? No. Can you yourself translate into Hebrew? Which? That 4th verse of the 2nd chapter of Genesis. You mean here? Yes. What does it say, Kelly? Can you read that? What does it say? Do I need to zoom it in? No, I won't attempt to do that. So was I making a false accusation, Kelly? Is that a false accusation? Surely you're going to respond back, right? Well, let's move on.
So, for example, if I tell you, Kelly, can you jump a foot high? There's a difference between you telling me no or no, I won't attempt to do that.
Okay.
When you say no, I won't attempt to do that, you don't have nothing to prove. I'm not going to do that. Maybe you don't want it. You don't feel like it. Whatever justification you have. But when you say no, that means you can't do it. So that's just disingenuous, and that's the Watchtower's point of what they call positive.
So what did Walter Martin get right?
About
You
Jesus
said half, so
like
that means if half isn't right, then half must be right.
Oh, did I say half?
A little work.
I don't know if
Play
I
a
did
little
say
word
half.
game with you there.
Yeah, I don't remember if I said half.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all right.
He's a good debater. I admit that.
He was a good defender of the Bible.
I just wish, I really wish he was alive during my time, or I lived during his time. I would really have challenged him. I really would have.
I haven't read that in a while. I haven't read what you said in a while, but
you heard that, right? You heard that. So this gave him time to even investigate after this discussion. Then he made his video that I was misrepresenting him, or I made false accusations about Walter Martin. What does the evidence show, Kelly? Why didn't you be a Berean as you claim to be? Why didn't you investigate, sir? Can you explain that?
What you just said, I would even have a little problem with, because the fact is he was in a...
Listen to the fallacy that Kelly makes. Obviously, he doesn't know the whole situation about the court case. The whole court case was whether Jehovah's Witnesses are recognized as a religion in Scotland. It had nothing to do with Franz's credentials, his ability to translate. It had nothing to do with the accuracy of the New World Translation. But listen to the silly, fallacious argument he makes. He shows he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Certain situation which he was supposed to be qualified to translate such and such, and he didn't, and he had the opportunity to do so.
He wasn't on trial for that, though, sir.
Which would have verified and proved his scholarship, but he didn't. So
he wasn't going to court for that.
Even though, as you said, it wasn't completely 100%, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that bit, so I have to go look again on the wording of what you just said, so I can't disprove or prove what you just said. But even on what you just said, if I was put in a situation where I was being questioned whether my authority, my scholarship, what I can or cannot translate, and I was in an opportunity to do that, I would openly want to do it to show everyone around me I actually know what I'm talking about.
But look at the request. It was a weird request to translate from English to Hebrew, when Franz even said he does not speak Hebrew, and yet the lawyer still wanted Franz to translate English into Hebrew. And notice here, oh, you know what? I'll get into it in a moment. But just listen to his fallacious argument first, Kelly's
argument. You can share this. And from what I remember, this that he was supposed to translate from the Old Testament text, I think it was something from Genesis, like you said, it was very basic. It was something that was very basic. And so just the fact that he chose not to, even just not really disputing what you just said, because I can't do that right now.
This is where he's getting this from. This is Walter Martin's, the next paragraph. He says this: we asked a Hebrew teacher at Biola University, Talbot Theological Seminary, in the 4th verse of the 2nd chapter of Genesis, was a particularly difficult verse to translate. After all, the pursuer's question would hardly have been fair if it were the hardest verse in the Old Testament to translate. The professor said that he would never pass a first-year Hebrew student who cannot translate that verse. This is an example of the scholarship back in the New World Translation. There's some problems with this paragraph. For one, it's not clear whether Walter Martin supposedly asked this professor if it was translating into Hebrew to English, or English into Hebrew. Another professor had a different experience. Rolf Furli, he's a lecturer of Semitic languages at the University of Oslo, Norway. This is how he relates to his experience. He asked two professors of Hebrew. This is what he says. I asked two of my colleagues who teach Hebrew at the University of Oslo to translate the passage of Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. Both had problems with the translation from English to Hebrew, even though they both are experienced teachers, and their results were very different from what Walter Martin claims. Therefore, it's a highly questionable claim that any student who attended a first-year Hebrew class can translate the scriptures that Franz was asked to do so. Okay, and that's a good point that this Hebrew scholar, in his book, Handbook of Biblical Hebrew, an inductive approach based on the Hebrew text of Esther, William Sanford LaSor, says this on page 16. All learning is in context. The context, however, is not artificial, composed perchance by one who does not use a language naturally. Rather, it is the actual language of those who use it as their mother tongue. For this reason, here's the point. For this reason, I refuse to ask the students to compose sentences in Hebrew. To do so is to impress errors of the student's mind. And frankly, most of us who teach biblical Hebrew do not have sufficient fluency in the language to speak or write in it. I differentiate here between biblical and modern Hebrew. So how can this be the case, Walter Martin? Too bad he's not alive to answer that. But the evidence shows that it is questionable. And as we've seen, his credibility, how he misquotes people, I doubt that he even asked a biblical Hebrew scholar. It's possible, but I think he probably asked him to translate from Hebrew to English and not English to Hebrew, which is quite different, very different. But as Kelly, he doesn't know. He doesn't even know the whole situation.
With what we're in a conversation. But just the fact that he didn't do it would make me question something right there, because if I was that certain situation, I get challenged all the time with things. And so I'm like, well, okay, if they're going to challenge me on this, then I'm going to respond with this. But if I don't even say anything back, but yet I'm telling people I can do such and such, I'm kind of looking like...
Did you hear what he said? If he doesn't say anything back, he said, no, I won't attempt to do that.
Fool, so to speak, because I have that opportunity and I didn't do it. Therefore, it makes me look bad. Whether or not I actually can do it or not, the person should have did that. So I'm just kind of giving that simple response. I can't get into all the details of what you said. But let me challenge you on something, my friend, because we're both live right now.
I wasn't going to let him get away with this, what his nonsense that he just said.
So, wouldn't that be the same thing about Jesus? When Pontius Pilate asked him, are you a king? Are you the son of God?
But he did say yes.
He didn't say it. He didn't say yes.
Oh, yeah, he did.
or he didn't. He said, you're the one who's saying that.
Yeah,
didn't
well,
say-
he
he
gave
didn't
him a
address it.
question back, but he didn't deny it.
Franz didn't deny it. It's Walter Martin's misquote that makes it appear Franz said he couldn't do it.
But he never
There was other times where he
claimed
did
to
do
be the Son of God. When
Yeah.
he was active, when he was at Pontius Pilate.
Yeah. Well,
No, not with Pontius Pilate.
maybe not that exact circumstance,
The
but
point is-
that's a
the
different
point is-
scenario.
The point is, he didn't have anything to prove.
True, but that's
scholarship-
a different
scholarship.
scenario though, because
Right,
that
right,
was
right,
where
but-
Jesus was Messiah, and he was
The principle is still the same.
doing certain things for a certain reason. With Francis, he should have actually did what he was supposed to do to be able to prove it, right?
Why? What? Why?
Well-
no.
Well,
Because
let me
the
ask you
exact
this.
standards.
So
wait,
let
wait, the-
no, hold on.
wait,
Let's
wait,
actually
wait,
go
the-
to
the-
let's
the-
go
the
farther
exact
into our
standards.
conversation. Let's get past.
What are you doing, Peter?
Show this to your editor. Tell him to check his source next time.
It's a fake. Empire State Photographic Department confirms it.
Walter Martin, because this is
The
this is what I'm going to do right
standard
now to
still
you.
applies.
This is what I'm going to do to you right now. Earlier, you said you thought my arguments were weak. Remember that? You thought that debate that I had with that Jehovah's was not very good. So I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to stand up to you and say, I don't believe you. Saying something about the kingdom in a linear translation and that guy that was kind of making a fuss over really nothing with John 14. You said you've been a Jehovah's Witness for how many years now again, just to clarify?
I would say about 20 years from about now.
20 years. Okay, good enough. So since you have the kingdom in a linear before you, please turn to Colossians 1. I have a question that I want to ask you to prove and to clarify to me something that I'm very confused about with the Watchtower. And this is what I shared with that other Jehovah's Witness, and he failed to be able to give an answer. So let's see if you can give an answer.
He didn't fail. He did a pretty good job.
So in Colossians chapter 1, if you've been a Jehovah's Witness for 20 years, you probably know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. I would assume so. In the kingdom in a linear, verse 16 and 17, you know 4 times the word other is not there, but it's in the old New World Translation from 1950 all the way up to 2012 until the 2013 edition has the word other there in the New World Translation with no brackets whatsoever. But in the older ones, I'm reading right now the New World Translation, because by means of him all other in brackets things were created in the heavens and upon the earth, things visible, things invisible, no matter whether they are thrones, lordships, or governments or authorities, all other in brackets things have been created through him and for him. He is before all other in brackets things, and by means of him all other in brackets again things were made to exist. So there's 4 times, which you obviously would know. Now in the kingdom in a linear, which is supposed to be,
Notice too that I give him a chance, an opportunity to talk. Unfortunately, he doesn't give me that same respect because he keeps cutting me off. But you'll see.
the literal, as we talked about earlier, and you can actually read the preface on page 5. It literally says, if you want to examine any
Yes.
English translation for your accuracy, it actually says you compare the kingdom and linear with it and see which one actually stands
Yes.
up to the test. Actually, literally says that on page 5. So when you read the interlinear part, which you will full well know, it says, because in him it was created the all things in the heavens and upon the earth, the things visible, the things invisible, whether thrones or lordships or governments or authorities, the all things, through him and into him it has been created. He is before all things, and the all things in him has stood together. So my question to you, friend, in a respectful way, has the Watchtower ever clarified why now in the newest New World Translation that the word other that's been for since the beginning from 1950 all the way up to the revised version in 2013 edition, where they took off the brackets, and now it makes it appear as if this is actually scripture and the word other would actually be there. What's been the Watchtower's response for that?
Officially, I don't know officially, but if you know anything about literature, if anything, it's just basic knowledge. Something doesn't have to be referenced. You can easily reference it. It's public knowledge, pretty much. You could just go to the website, or even go to any Greek linear, and you'll see that the word "other" isn't there. It's public knowledge now that "other" isn't in the Greek text. So why should I put it in brackets?
So then why did they add the word "other" there with no longer brackets around?
Because it wasn't public knowledge at the time.
But the word "other" is not there ever in the Greek at all, period. And
right.
Since 1950, they've always had it with brackets, at least acknowledging that it was not in the text. So why are they doing that now?
Right. I just explained that because it's public knowledge.
There's so many references to go by. It doesn't need to be added in there.
It's public knowledge.
What does that mean, public knowledge?
Well, if I tell you that...
Okay, I gotta admit he got me here because I didn't think he was going to ask me what is public knowledge, because that's self-explanatory. So my whole point here was this. You don't have to do the scientific method to determine whether the sun is going to come out tomorrow. That's public knowledge. It's common sense. But he caught me off there because I didn't think he was going to ask such a basic question.
The sun is going to come out in the morning. That's public knowledge, right? It's common sense.
Sure. So you can just add whatever word you want to the Bible because you think that's common knowledge?
Well, how about...
Yes.
Oh, you said that you use the American Standard Bible.
Just stay in Colossians 1 for me. Just stay in those...
Yeah. You see, he wouldn't even let me give an example. And the example I was going to show him is within the Colossians. And I asked him several times, let me show you this example. But he doesn't want to. But let's continue.
Yeah, I'm getting a point. Yeah, we're gonna stay in Colossians.
I just want you to answer first before we go anywhere else. Do me this respect. I listened to you a little while ago and I didn't interrupt you or whatever, and I want to stay on point. From your point of view, do you have an answer of why now the word "other" is there as if it looks like it's supposed to be there when it's not supposed to be there? It's not in the Greek. Previous translations at least acknowledged with brackets that this is not in the Greek. It's not there at all. Why do they now make it appear as it's supposed to be there?
Well, we already established that it's public knowledge on the reason why it's not there.
No, it's not. The word "other" should not be there at all, period. It's not public knowledge. It's not in Scripture.
That's your opinion.
It is public knowledge. I don't know why he said that, because you could just look up the Greek interlinears on the web. Anything on the website, on the internet, it's public knowledge. You could just look up the sources. But I think this is a good time to bring up a point here. Under the same scholar that I referenced earlier, Rolf Furli, in his book, The Role of Theology and Bias in Bible Translation, he does, after going a whole technical discussion of Colossians 1:16 through 18 about the word "other," this is what he concludes. Thus, there can be no doubt that from a linguistic point of view, the translation "all others" is perfectly legitimate in Colossians 1:16 through 17 and 20. It is not mandatory, but it is possible. This means that the brackets that the New World Translation use around "other" may be removed, because the word "other" is no addition or interpolation, but in a given context, it is legitimate part of pas. That's all in the Greek. So maybe the Watchtower took other scholars' advice into consideration, such as Rolf Furli, probably others as well. Officially, I don't know, but it's public knowledge. And according to this biblical scholar, which I totally agree, it doesn't change the meaning through the whole context. But we'll get into this.
That's your
So
opinion.
give me
That's for clarity.
any
That's
Greek.
for
Give
clarity.
me any Greek interlinear. Doesn't have to be this one. Give me anyone that has the word other there with a Greek.
Goodness, another fallacious argument. Throughout this whole debate, he has straw man arguments and fallacious ones. It's insane. But let's continue.
Word other.
But that's a false argument that you're using.
No.
Yeah,
If you
it
were
is.
going to
You know
go
why?
with what the
You know why?
Bible's supposed to say,
I never made the argument
No, but
that's
this
supposed
is
to be
the
in the
point
Greek.
earlier that we talked about
Did
with
I
John
ever?
14:14.
Did I
remember?
ever? Did I ever tell you it was in the Greek?
No. But
Then why are you making that argument?
But you need to understand something.
The earlier argument that we had is with another. I had it with another YouTuber, but I don't want to get into his name. It was more discussing about textual criticism, how words in the Greek appear in some manuscripts and others don't appear in the manuscripts. Specifically, we're discussing, I think, John 14:14. But at any rate, this is what he's doing is comparing apples and oranges.
I'm going back to my previous debate with the Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
You said it was a weak argument, different things that I said. This is
It
one
is.
of the points that
It
I
is.
had in there.
Right.
So I'm challenging you to defend the Watchtower now of their assertion for the word other now being there with no brackets when it shouldn't be
He asked me and watched. He doesn't allow me to, even though he asked.
there, period, because it clearly gives a different context to what's there, number one. It gives a completely different context, number one. So they now have it there to make it look like, so if somebody becomes a converted Jehovah's Witness in the last few years, they have no idea of the previous edition unless they actually do something like what you've done, which you're not supposed to do.
This is something I'm not granting him at all. It's unheard of if a Bible student doesn't. It's unheard of a Bible student not comparing other Bibles, especially the King James version. This is something unheard of. This is such a weak, lame argument. I don't know one Bible student that hasn't compared their copy of the Bible to the New World Translation, or others who have done their own research to whatever we're saying and compare it. This is a perfect example. It's unheard of. Kelly, this is something I'm not granting. It's such a lame response. Let's continue.
Public
And look
knowledge,
into
sir.
things,
It's not
right?
something private. It's public knowledge.
But that's not an answer, sir. You
That
have
is
to
an
be able to
answer.
explain
You're
why
not
other
understanding.
is
I'm
not
not sure
in
where
the
the
Greek when
disconnect
you
is.
add it into.
These
No,
are false
you
arguments
can't
you're
get away
using,
from
sir.
that.
These are false
No, it's
arguments
not.
you're using.
Give me a Greek interlinear that the word other is there. If you can do, I'll shut up.
I said that's a false argument, and then he just proved my point that was a false argument, because no one is saying that the word other is in the Greek interlinear. That's what he just said. It's in the New World Translation, in the English copy of a translation.
Why would I do that when I never claimed that? The Watchtower don't even claim
But
that.
that's what the
So why-
Watchtower does. That
No, they don't.
changes
No, they
the
don't.
context.
No, they don't.
What's
Listen
their
to what you're saying.
justification for the word? What's their justification for the word other there? Give me one good reason.
Yeah, because people who, like you, fails to see verse 115. Verse
So
115
you can just
clarifies
add words there to make it say something it doesn't?
for the English language, yeah, for clarity.
That's called
clarity.
false.
That's false what?
That's
False
called
what?
deception.
It's not
Adding
false
God,
deception.
adding
It doesn't
stuff
change
to
the
it to make it
text.
fit your theology? You're
No,
adding
it's
words
because
to make
you
it
don't
fit your
agree with the
theology.
theology. You don't agree with the theology, so that's why it's problematic for you.
So,
But you
so
fail.
here's this.
You fail.
So
you
here's,
fail to
so
read
here's the
verse
challenge.
115.
Here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. Prove to me without the word other in that context. Remove it completely because it's not supposed to be the number one. So that's number one. Prove to me from Colossians 1:15, 16, 17, Jesus is supposed to be created. Take the word other out of there.
Let's do it.
And prove it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And just a side note too, other denominations who have no dealings with the Jehovah Witnesses don't even care for the New World Translation. Understand this text the same as Jehovah's Witnesses. Assemblies of
That's
Yahweh.
okay. That's just me and you right now.
The only point I was making is when you read Colossians 1:15 through 20, others recognize Jesus created all other things because himself is not included. But we'll get into it. That's all my point was saying, that others view Colossians 1:15 through 20 the same as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah,
It's just
I
me
know,
and you.
but this is my point.
I could give you
You don't
100
have to
scholars
have
to
that.
disprove it right now. So
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you can. I'm sure you
I
can.
can
I'm sure you
times
can.
yours by 10.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure
So
you
let's
can.
not do numbers.
Let's get to the text then. Colossians 1:15. Hold on.
And just for a quick point, even though I know we're getting a little heated here, just to still be friendly, how much time can you actually talk?
As much as time as you like.
Oh, dude, we're going to the morning. Sweet.
Okay.
I would probably say another 45 minutes would probably be good or less. I don't want to go forever, but
I was actually hoping that we could have went more because we had 2 weeks to prepare for all this, and unfortunately he didn't do his part and prepare. He was just using the same arguments as he did previously, and he does always, which are easily disputed, but he wasn't prepared for this one.
if we want to have more chats down the road, that's good too.
Okay. He is the image of the invisible God.
Okay.
The firstborn of all creation.
Sure.
So the simple fact that he's the image shows that he's not.
Are you breaking up there?
God. He's the image of God. The icon. Every is not that individual. It's a reflection. Copy. It's not the individual. Therefore, Jesus is not God. He's the image of God. In the next verse, the firstborn of all.
Next
creation,
sentence, I meant.
for Pentecost, using it in the genitive form. When it's used in the genitive form, it means he's part of creation. So right there, you have that baseline. Jesus is created. Now we go back. Now we go into the text that's disputed, because by means of him, all other things were created.
Let's
In the
stop for a
heavens.
second. Stop 1 second. So, you just said he's first to be created? Is that what you just said?
Yes. Yes.
What's in Greek the words first to be created? Do you know what the words literally are?
Protekisis.
Actually, you're smarter than I thought you were. So, why would Paul not use that word when it literally means first to be created? Do you have a thought?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why didn't he use that word?
This is a fundamental fallacy that you made in that video with that Jehovah's Witnesses. You made the assertion that word existed at the time, and it was used regularly. Okay.
It did.
Can you provide me? Okay. Can you provide me any Greek literature that had this? Plato, Socrates.
Not off the top of my head right now, but
Any type of Greek?
what I've read online.
And he won't be able to provide any because it didn't exist during the time of Jesus. Let's move on.
It has existed by other scholars that I've
What
read.
you read?
He's misunderstanding whoever he read. He's misunderstanding them.
Spiros Zodhiates, Vines.
Name, what scholar?
Spiros Zodhiates.
What scholar?
Dr. Spiros
What scholar?
Zodhiates cites it. I'm going
When
to
did
say
he
it one
say
more
this?
time.
I
Dr.
doubt it.
Spiros Zodhiates.
Okay, here I do have to apologize to Kelly because from what I was hearing him saying, I thought he was referring to Odyssey of Homer. For some reason, I kept thinking he was saying Odyssey, the Odysseys of Homer. But he was saying Spiros Zodhiates. He's a Greek scholar, but I checked his sources to see if he had if he even mentioned anything of Protiskikis in the first created is in the Greek during the time of Jesus. I cannot find anything, nothing. He also mentioned W.E. Vine, who's also a Greek scholar. I cannot find anything. He doesn't provide anything showing that Protogistus first created was within that time frame of Jesus. It doesn't. It doesn't exist. I only know one scholar who did think that. Minsker did think that, but he had no proof. But it's primarily apologetics who have no idea what they're talking about, who think that this word existed during the time. What they're doing really is just going by what other people are saying and not actually verifying it. But we'll get into that as we'll get into this discussion. But Spiros, Zodhiates, and W.E. Vine does not mention anything about Protogistus being first created within the period of Jesus.
He's a
Are you
Greek
being honest?
scholar.
This is why I'm having my
I
doubts.
understand that.
The word didn't exist.
You didn't say this?
That's correct. Okay, first, before we start doing accusation and finding out,
See, he's getting mad because I'm questioning what he's saying. I'm not going just to accept what he says. I wanted him to reference something. He mentioned names, but he didn't reference their work.
let's get back to the word firstborn.
Wait.
No.
You brought out first created. You brought out first created. No. Did you bring that? Sir, you brought.
He's the one who brought up first created. I didn't, and I wanted to further explain something to him, which he just wanted to dismiss it and change the subject.
Out first created. Let me make my point here. Let me make my point.
Keep it
Can I make my
simple.
point, please?
Then go
Can you
back
make
to
my
firstborn
point?
and
Did you
explain
bring
to
up
me.
first created, sir?
Explain to me.
Sir,
Don't.
sir, I want to bring up
Really?
point. I want to bring up a point.
Hey.
You
Okay.
brought out
Stop
the
for 1
point.
second.
First
Let me
created.
make a question to you. Stop for a second. Just breathe. Literally breathe. I'm going to let you make your point. Just listen. I don't want to play the Bible ping pong rabbit trail going all over the place right now.
What is he even talking about? We weren't discussing about anything about ping pong, taking Bible verses. I see what he's saying, but none of that was done here. He brought out a point about first created. He was defeated. He had he has no sources to back up what he was saying. So he wanted to change the subject.
What I'm asking you is this. There's two words. There is the word that you brought up and you knew right away. I can give you scholars and names of them. I know Vines has mentioned it. I know Dr. Spiros Zodhiates, who is a Greek scholar, has mentioned this. So
They
I have
don't.
names.
They don't.
Question
None of
whether or
them
not I'm being
mentioned.
honest,
None
or I
of
will
them
literally
mentioned.
cut you
None of
off
them
right
mentioned.
now. Stop. If
None
you're
of
going to
them-
question my honesty, this conversation will be done. Mark my words.
I think you're just misrepresenting him.
Stop.
I would love
understand
for
what I'm
you.
saying?
I would love
Do
to
you
show
understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand.
Okay, stop making
You
that.
were not prepared with the
Now,
reference.
listen.
You weren't
I'm
prepared with
asking
the
you
reference.
to clarify, why did Paul use the word protokotokos, which does not mean first to be created, when protokotesis does? Please answer that now.
Here I'm saying something, but I don't know what.
I can't hear you.
Not knowing that I'm not being heard.
You still there? Are you still there?
Absolutely.
Okay, just
It's
didn't hear you for a
followed by
bit.
a genitive. It's always referring to the lineage. I could give example after example.
I know you're reading your Watchtower. What is the answer? Why did Paul not use that word? Please don't just look at all your books right now. Have a conversation with me.
There was no books being read.
And again, I can't hear you. You're having connection problems. There you go. You're back.
Okay. You let
Oh, jeez. That connection was
cases,
horrible.
right?
What's that?
The Greek cases, the Greek cases, when you have the genitive, the vocative,
Listen.
so that
Yes, I do, but that's not the point of the two separate words. There's two separate words being addressed here.
but the way it determines the function is based on the Greek case. Would you agree with me?
Let me ask you a question. Firstborn, according to you,
So you're just going to ignore
protokotokos.
my question?
No, but you're sidetracking the issue here. There's two different words. Protokotokos does not mean first to be created. Period. Protokotesis does. So, I'm asking you again if there is a clear distinction between those two words, and Paul wanted to be so explicitly clear on this. Don't you think he would have?
Have what? Would have what?
Protokotokos does not mean first to be created.
But you asked me a question. What would have what? If I think that Paul
He
would
would
have
have
what?
used the other word, like I said before.
How? When it didn't exist. It didn't exist.
Okay, according to you.
It didn't exist.
According to you, but
No,
other scholars have clearly defined this. So, do you have any scholars that say it doesn't?
Okay, so listen. He was looking for references, and yet he wasn't prepared to provide any references. He dropped names, but no reference, and none of them stated that Protokistis existed during the time of Jesus or Paul. I mean,
Exist?
no, they didn't.
You have a scholar?
Kelly, if you're even listening to this, please provide where Spiros Zodhiates or W.E. Vine or any scholar states this, and what do they reference? They're not going to get anything past Clement of Alexandria. They're not. Let's move on.
This doesn't exist?
That's what I was trying to prove. Yes.
Give me a
That's what I'm
scholar
trying
that
to
says
point out
Proteus
to
never
you.
existed.
That the first, this is why I was trying to reach you. So let me go
What
back
are you
to
reading
it.
from?
Let me get the book.
You see, if you would have just let me speak without kept on cutting me off, I would have provided him the reference.
Hold on. I believe it was in the book of Clement.
The Book of Clement?
Now listen to this. This is gonna shock you what he says.
Of Alexander?
You talking about a church father?
Yes.
Oh, friend,
My point
let's
is this.
not waste time. That's
Hold
not
on.
a
Hold
Greek
on.
scholar.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
That's not someone we're talking about.
He knew Greek more than any of our modern scholars.
All right,
but
let's move on. You're
No,
playing games.
hold on.
We're
No.
moving on.
Wow, I'm playing games. Wow.
So let's go to the word
John
firstborn.
Patrick. I found the book. John Patrick.
Who's
In
John
his book,
Patrick? Who's
he's
John Patrick?
he's a Greek scholar knowing about the historian of church fathers.
To be more precise, Reverend John Patrick was a professor of biblical textual criticism and biblical antiquities at the University of Edinburgh. That's who he was. Kelly,
Your friend
Okay.
probably would know him.
probably
John
not.
Patrick. And when he says this,
Okay.
that the word didn't exist within until 100 to 200 years after Christ. When protothesis was eventually used, it was use of Christ. Patrick states
Okay.
in Clement.
He's so shocked that he doesn't even want me to finish my reference. Look at him. He's so shocked.
Okay.
Alexandria,
So
no.
his name is John Patrick. and the
Clement
name of the book, and then
repeatedly.
yeah. I'm just going to give you the benefit
Clement
of the
of
doubt.
Alexandria.
So, give me the benefit of the doubt. So the name of the book
Right,
again is
but
what?
let me read this real quick. Let me read
Just
this.
stop. Just stop.
Clement of Alexandria.
Clement of Alexandria, and the author is John Fitzpatrick.
Clement of Alexandria. Yes.
All right. So for anyone who listens later,
John Patrick.
be a Berean. Look that up yourself. All right. Let's move on. Okay.
You should have just took those words apply that to yourself, Kelly. You should apply it to yourself. Be a Berean and research on your own, because obviously you have not.
So let's dismiss that
Yeah,
for a second.
page 103, page 104. He identifies Jesus as the first creator.
Okay, that's what this John Patrick guy says.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great.
pretty much everyone else. The word didn't exist.
No.
He's so he doesn't want to accept it.
In the Bible, as you would appear to know, the word firstborn is used in numerous places, correct?
Oh, I'm getting cut off again. My internet was
I
cutting
can't
off.
hear you. Now you're back.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. So the word
Can you hear me?
firstborn is used
Okay.
in the... Yep, I can hear you again. So the word firstborn is used in different places in the Bible, Old and New Testament, correct?
Yes.
All right, can you give me an example where anywhere it would talk about the word firstborn meaning first to be created, like literally being created?
With this question, he still doesn't get it. This is the point. Firstborn and first created do not mean the same thing. But when you qualify prototokos with pasiskistisios, that's firstborn of all creation. When you qualify it, then it does mean first created, firstborn of all creation. So the word firstborn does not mean first created, correct? But when you qualify firstborn of all creation, it does mean first created. And he doesn't understand that.
Firstborn.
Even when I ask him over and over whether if it's in the genitive, if you could find, just watch.
Again means the first of that
First
group.
to be created. We're
Yeah,
talking about
the-
created. First to be created. I'm asking you that question.
Proto-Kephisis did not exist during the time of.
Okay, proto-otokos, I'm asking you, firstborn, can you give me one example of scripture where that word is in reference to first to be created?
No, but I could give.
No, we can't, because no one is but Jesus Christ. So that's a fallacy, false comparison.
It's first in lineage.
Okay, so there's a difference then. Okay.
Yes, the construction of the grammar of firstborn in the genitive is consistent within the lineage of creation, lineage of Pharaoh, lineage of an animal. And this is the point I keep on asking you. Can you show me anywhere of your examples that the firstborn of is followed by a genitive where they're not included in that group? I asked him repeatedly and he fails. He doesn't even address it. He doesn't even make an attempt. If he didn't know, he just should have said, let me research it. But instead, he seems to be, he's not humble enough. That's what I get out of it. Let's continue.
So I'm just making clarification here. So you believe Colossians 1:15 teaches he's first to be created there, but no other place in Scripture is the word firstborn in reference to something or someone first to be created, correct?
So he's the first in lineage of creation.
That's different. I'm just saying the word first to be created. I want at least to be in agreement on something with you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
This is what I'm saying though, that after the time of Jesus, the church fathers, Clement, they use firstborn and first created interchangeably. After
Well, the good news is I don't have to rely upon the church fathers, so praise the Lord for that.
Okay, good. Good. Good.
So answer me this then. A couple of questions, and if you know the word firstborn is used, obviously, in Exodus 4:22, you probably are familiar with it, where God says to Israel, "You are my firstborn." In Jeremiah 31:9.
All his examples he's providing is not in the same construction as in Colossians 1:15. And I ask him about that, and he totally dismisses it.
And assuming you're familiar with this as well, Ephraim is called God's firstborn. In Psalm 89, verse 27, I think it is, or 26, King David is called God's firstborn. Now, to my knowledge, Israel was not created or first to be created. They were a group of people that God called out to be his people. So firstborn in that particular context would definitely have a different meaning. Ephraim was actually not born to be first. He was actually born after Manasseh. Manasseh was literally the firstborn, so to speak, in birth. And King David had 7 older brothers. So I shared that with you to point out something. Firstborn, of course, as you would understand, even though we have differences of views, would have context.
Notice I'm giving him all this time. I'm not even interrupting him. I'm not interrupting him. Watch.
To understand what's being implied. So saying that, what I just said, because I know you don't believe firstborn Israel was not first to be created. I know that you do not believe Ephraim was first to be created. And I know you don't believe King David was first to be created. I would be very shocked if you said yes to any one of those things. Point being is when Jesus is called the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, and then Paul goes...
You see how he just changed it? Firstborn over, and that's not what the text says, and he's all over the New World Translation. They added other. What did he just do? What he's really doing here is he's citing the NIV Bible and other Bibles too that has the firstborn over creation. The Greek word there, over, is not in the text. So he just contradicted himself with his own argument right there. Kelly, did you recognize what you just did? You added over in this text. Over does not appear in the Greek. Not in Colossians 1:15, sir. So you just contradicted yourself.
Into the text of 16 and 17, it says, "For by him all things were created. He is before all things, and in him all things." And the word other is not there. The context from my perspective, whether you agree or not, is that...
I was really biting my tongue when he said firstborn over all creation, but I was being respectful and not interrupt him because I wanted to make his point.
Jesus is called firstborn, as you were trying to say earlier about preeminence or rank or things like that. Jesus is being talked about as having this rank over all of creation, being called the firstborn, not in reference to being created, but because he's the very one who created everything himself. Do you understand my perspective there?
Yes, but I don't know what you're...
Okay, I'm just asking you at least understand where I'm coming from, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what's your response then on what I just shared there?
Okay, so if you allow me to, so you...
Can't hear you.
John 1.
I even asked him to at least let me say my part without interrupting. That's what my whole point of me saying that. But he just can't help himself. Kelly can't help himself.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you again. Yep, you're back.
Okay. So let me speak on firstborn, and then John 1:1-3, since you made those two arguments all at one time.
Okay, just before you go to
The
John
way-
1:3, just I want to make sure let's stay with Colossians first, and then we can go to John after. Okay.
Yeah. So with the firstborn, you have cases, the Greek cases that I was referring to. The Greek case, such as the Septuagint, functions the same as it is in Exodus chapter 6, verse 14, Exodus 11:5, and Exodus 13:15. The firstborn of followed by a genitive always states that whatever's the firstborn is always within that group. With all the many examples we have in the Bible, there should be no other reason why Colossians 1.
There should be no exception why Colossians 1:15 shouldn't include Jesus in creation.
The firstborn of our creation, because this is our creation. That's the basis on why Jesus is firstborn. So we can just leave it at that. Unless, Kelly,
Here's the
you
question.
can show me an example.
Here's the question.
Where protocost is followed by genitive word.
What is it? How does he respond?
Doesn't mean a literal.
How does Kelly respond?
Within the lineage, because all the examples you just gave.
All the examples were false comparisons.
You broke up. Can't hear you. Let's try again.
Okay, what part did you hear?
Something about all those cases or something you were getting ready to say.
Yeah. All those examples that you gave are not the same as Colossians 1:15. They're all different cases.
So let me ask you a question back in Colossians then. Colossians 1:16 says, "For by him all things were created." All things. So if Jesus is a part of creation, did he create himself?
No, the one he's the image of. When you're an
But it
image
says
of
Jesus
someone.
created all things.
Context, sir. Context. You're forgetting about verse 15 where it starts it off. He's
Well,
the
that's
image.
kind of what makes my point, that he's actually created. That's the whole point.
This is shocking. This is where Kelly is so blinded by his Trinitarian lenses that he doesn't understand the simple language. When you're in the image of someone, the senior always precedes the junior. It's simple language. And this is the point I was trying to bring up to him. It's simple language. And, well, take...
Yes, hold on. He's the image of the invisible God. The one he's the image of existed before him. So
And
he's
that's
the
not what the text
firstborn.
says there. That's not what the text says.
He's saying that's not what the text says, but this is plain language that the writer gives us. This is what Paul's telling us. He's the image of the invisible God. Not that he's God, but he's the image of God. He's the image of his Father, his senior. The senior always precedes the junior. This is simple language, and he is disputing this simple concept. His Trinitarian beliefs got him so blind that he doesn't understand this concept. It's so basic. I don't understand this. But actually I do. It's so basic that I don't even know how to even articulate it. The senior comes before the junior. How else can you explain that? And yet he doesn't get it.
What it says.
Doesn't say
That's
that.
what it says. It says
Where does
image.
it say he lived it before him?
Well, that's common sense.
No,
If you're
you're
an
adding
image,
common sense to a different context.
if you're an image of something,
No?
that something existed before.
In plain language, no one would say that a junior and a senior coexisted. Nothing would say that. Or not coexisted, but are the image of one another. It's always the junior is the image of the senior. It's not equivalent. He's not understanding this simple concept. He is the image of the invisible God. God is the senior, Jesus being the junior. How simplistic can you get than that? He's the firstborn of all creation. It's simple. It's simple.
For the image.
All right. Well, Jesus said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father."
Wait, is
Was
that-
Jesus literally?
Another fallacious argument that he makes. But listen to his argument. Just listen.
Hold on. Was Jesus literally God the Father? Jesus said in John 14:9, "If you see
Another
me,
false
you've seen the
comparison.
Father." Is Jesus literally God the Father?
No. Why would you even bring that argument up? That makes
Then
no
the
sense.
point is, if you say Jesus' image doesn't mean he can't then more be God because he's an image. Well, Jesus said, "Well, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father." So that kind of debunks what you just said. If we want to use common sense.
How that argument works, I have no idea. But listen, I reiterated what he just said, and he says, no, it's not what he said. And then he paraphrased what I said.
No, you actually proving my point, sir. You're proving my point.
I have no idea how that proves your point.
Prove my point.
You proved my point, Kelly, because when I said Jesus is the image of God, it makes them two separate. Your example is trying to say is that you're trying to make it seem people could interpret when Jesus said, if you see me, you've seen the Father, that they're one and the same person, I guess. Yeah, that's what you're saying, which is modalism. But I'm not sure how I don't see the connection of the two. So you just proved my point that they're not the same. God is senior. Jesus being the image of God, the senior, shows that he's a junior. So the Father preceded the Son. It's common, basic knowledge.
That's news to me.
As the Father, because you said, if Jesus says, "I'm the," if you see me, you've seen the Father. Does it make them one in the same?
No, that's not what I said.
Actually,
that
that's
your
what you
argument?
said.
That's not what I said. I literally said a response to you because you said it says he is the image of the invisible God. Therefore, that implies. Hold on, stop. Therefore, that implies that God, so to speak, the Father was before Jesus. So therefore, Jesus didn't exist. Therefore,
In simple, plain language, yes. And that's what Paul is writing to us in simple, Koine Greek. That's what it is. Basic, simple English. Greek, my bad. Koine Greek is basic Greek.
he had to be created. You read all that into that little text there that has no information. So I said to you, well, then by that same logic, if I was to read John 14.
What more information do you need if you're in the image of someone?
9, where Jesus says, literally, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, that must mean that Jesus is literally saying he's God the Father. And that
He just repeated what I said.
would not fly. You know that. That's the whole point. I don't believe that, but I'm saying the same thing.
That's why I was shocked.
You can't use the image of God thing to try to take away from the deity of Christ. What does verse 16 and 17 teach? Who did Jesus create? What did Jesus create? Was there anything Jesus did not create in all of creation?
Everything was created through him.
Was there anything of all creation that Jesus did not create?
Jesus was
I was.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
for all things.
I was on a roll.
All other things.
Right? No, there's no
Created
other.
all-
Get that word other out of there. There's no word
Yeah.
other there. Don't do that. That doesn't exist.
I didn't know I was getting cut off, but apparently I was. You couldn't hear me because the Wi-Fi. Ugh.
He was the intermediate agent.
let's go back again.
Well,
Is there anything of all of creation that Jesus did not create? Anything at all? Was there one thing?
okay, I didn't hear you. You broke out. The only thing I heard you say, did you ask me, is there one thing that Jesus didn't create?
Okay, can you hear me
But
now?
just started off.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
recite it again.
Mhm.
So what I asked you is this. Is there anything at all of creation? Was there one thing of all of creation that Jesus did not create?
To put it more accurately, God created through him. There wasn't one thing that was not created. Creation was through Jesus.
So there's not one
Do you
single
understand
thing of anything of all of creation. Let's just clarify this. Nothing of all of things that ever came into existence, nothing of anything of creation came into existence without Jesus. Yes or no?
Yes.
Did you notice that? Did you notice that? When he asks me a question, I'm direct. I just answer his question. He has not answered one question.
So then therefore,
Yes.
how do you explain Jesus being a part of creation and coming into existence at some point when the text clearly says he created all things?
Because common sense tells us already that he existed before all those
We're
things
going
that
with what the text
existed.
says. Don't get
He's the image of the invisible God. How much clearer can you be, Kelly? He's the image of the invisible God. God preceded Jesus. The simple fact that he's the image of him. Jesus is the image of God. That's plain language. To be honest with yourself, you don't know of any junior or any senior or junior that are quote equal on the same level. You don't. It's not the language that we use. And here Paul is telling us that Jesus is the image of God. Not that they look alike, not that they're twins or anything like that. Jesus looks like his father. The senior precedes the junior. It's simple common language. But your Trinitarian belief got you so blind that you can't get simple concepts.
common
Yeah.
sense. What does the text
That's
say?
what it says.
No, it does
The
not.
text says Jesus. The text says he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of creation.
See,
All
the
things
problem,
were created through
See,
him.
the problem here is
problem?
this.
The real problem is you don't answer any questions. You can't answer my questions. You know why? Because I debunk your belief.
Let me speak frankly as a friend. Even though I know we don't have the same views and we don't hang out like in real life, but if we did, I probably would hang out with you, have a burger, a pop, or whatever else. You sound like a cool guy. You really do. And I mean that, actually. I'm not just saying that. The difference between our conversation right now is simple. It really is. It's the
It is simple. You can't answer the question that I provided you. Once you get that established, then you can see how Jesus is not just the primacy, the ruler. He is actually the firstborn of all creation, a literal firstborn. He's within the creation. The Greek grammar dictates that. It's your theology that overrides the grammar. First focus on the grammar, then the context, then make your theology. That's the way it works with theology, hermeneutics. Do you even understand all this, sir? Probably not. Brian?
interpretation of the word firstborn. You see, I understand, as I shared earlier, there are plenty of examples how the word firstborn does not mean how you've been taught to believe firstborn. I understand that the word firstborn to have like a certain rank or authority over, which Scripture gives us plenty of examples over. The context of verse 16 and 17 goes on to say that he, Jesus, created all things, and he is before all things. So when I put verse 15, 16, and 17, this all flows together. Why? Because Jesus is above all of creation, and having that title firstborn does not mean that he had to come into existence or was created or something like that. It's showing that he has the authority over all of.
When you ignore the grammar, yes, you could make it. you can make it say anything that you like when you ignore the grammar. Mm-hmm.
Creation. And just to kind of jump for a second, in that other debate that I had, that was that John 1:3, where it literally says, not one thing came into existence apart from him. And so for me, as a person who believes these scriptures to be true, this is why I affirm that Jesus is not first to be created or to be a part of creation in general, but in fact to be the creator from my perspective. So I'd like to give you a response to that, then we can get into John chapter 1, verse 3. That's what we can look at in just a moment here.
You heard that? He's giving me a chance to respond. But does he? He just can't help himself.
Okay, so when the scripture tells us that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of our creation, that just alone should tell us that Jesus is not God, and he's part of creation. Because when we use firstborn of, in this case, the genitive case, which is always added, it would be inconsistent of using the form firstborn of all creation. This doesn't exist. Every time the firstborn is followed by a genitive, it always means he's part of that group.
Well, unfortunately, in this
Kelly can't help himself.
You cut me off. Sorry, I didn't cut you off. I don't know if
He just can't help himself. Kelly just can't help himself.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so the way every single example that you gave was not in the genitive form, making it a false comparison. What that's called is you're equivocating.
Equivocating.
You're using a word with a different meaning. Not in this case with Colossians 1:15, because it's consistent. And Jesus is not the creator. It says that creation was through him.
This is a good point too, because notice he doesn't understand what diatu. He doesn't understand what that means. This even gets worse. He doesn't even understand what it means.
Through him, diatu, as the intermediate and sustaining agent. He's not the cause. He's the intermediate agent. Creation is through him. He's not the initiator. He's not the cause.
Who said that?
A.T. Robertson, Greek scholar, in his word picture into the book.
A.T. Robertson says
He's a
Jesus is not the cause of creation, literally?
Yes.
As the intermediate, sustaining agent.
In verse 15.
It's not even listening. What I.
Is that what he's responding to? Is Colossians 1:15? Is that what you're saying?
1:16.
Okay. And you've read that yourself firsthand? Like you went to the website online and looked at that?
I'm reading it. It's in front of me. It's in front of me right now.
So what is Robertson say for verse 16?
Yeah,
so I know I'm familiar with him, and I don't remember reading that. I'm not going to go to my website right now just to do that. What does he say in verse 16 and 17? What does he say for verse 16?
Well, he parcels out each verse or some.
Well, I know I'm very familiar with him. I'm actually shocked that you just read. So I'm not trying to call you wrong, but I'm calling you wrong because I want to see what he says in verse 16. I mean, I can go to my.
It's
a
whole paragraph.
I can look real quick. Or maybe I should just do that.
Thing tapanta. You just want me to do that? Just read it, or you want to read it together, or?
Just read verse 16. What does it say?
This is what he says. All things tapanta. The universe, as in Romans 11:35, a will.
Okay, so from here, I just kind of want to skip it, because what we're doing here is just reading here. This is the point I was making. Through him, diatu, as the intermediate sustaining agent. He had already used enatoi in him in the sphere of activity. Through this point, Kelly just filibusters. He keeps on just talking and even reads. And to me, it seems like he has nothing to say. In fact, he has nothing to say. And he just filibusters regarding this.
Repeated at the end of the verse. In him were created. In atoi ekitsi. Paul now gives the reason, waiting for the
Can I fast forward it a little bit? I'm just reading it.
Correct?
Yeah.
So I have it open right now. Where's the part where he says
This is where he's in denial.
Robertson's word pictures of the New Testament, correct?
Yeah.
So I have it open right now. Where's the part where he says Jesus is not the cause? Where's it at?
No, it's verse 16.
16 it says he's not the cause, or verse 15?
Verse 16 says the intermediate agent.
Oh, so not verse 15.
Right, verse 16.
Okay. Let me
I'll
go to
repeat
the
it.
next one here. So where is it at? Where am I reading this here?
Look through him. You're looking at word picture in the New Testament, right?
That's correct. Robertson's word pictures. That's correct. Yeah.
Look at through him, where it says two, as the intermediate sustaining agent. When you're an intermediate sustaining agent, you're not the cause. You're an agent.
Oh,
you're
so you just added some words to it to fit your meaning, so it didn't actually say that. Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Actually, yes, it does say it, and he even reads it, and clearly does not understand what he's reading.
Now,
it didn't actually say what?
It doesn't say that he's not the cause
here. It didn't actually say what?
There's no words that say that.
What does it say?
Earlier, you said he literally says that Christ is not the cause of all creation. You said that.
He did say that.
Where does it say that here? I don't read that word. Where's it at?
As the intermediate and sustaining agent.
Yeah, but it doesn't
if you're
say
an
he's not the cause
intermediator,
of creation.
you're not the cause.
You've
so
been worded.
You
just did what the Watchtower did for Colossians 1:16. Good job. You've added words to fit your theology. Okay. It does not say that, sir.
Okay.
You added that.
Okay.
You were deceptive to me. If I didn't go look at this right now, you would have deceived me and anyone else listening later.
Let's go with your argument then.
No, but why did you say something it didn't say? I want to ask you that right now. Why did you say it said something when it didn't?
Because that's what it means.
You were reading things word for word, and then he said he was not the cause of creation. And I said, he said that? You said yes. I said, he literally said that? You said yes.
Yes.
I just went and read it and called you on it, and you just read something that wasn't true. Why would you do that?
Because that's what he's referring to.
You can't add words to what he's referring
to. It's called paraphrasing, Kelly. My goodness.
What is that, sir? Do you understand what that word means, intermediate?
I understand when someone is deceiving something. You said a minute ago.
So you don't understand what that means then. So you don't know what that means then.
Filibustering.
You said a moment ago. I'm trying.
He just filibustering.
Understand this.
No, you're not understanding.
You gave the indication that you were reading it word for word what you said, and I wanted to go read it, and I went and read this, and it doesn't say that. Now you can say you think it means that, whether or not directly, but it doesn't say that.
Actually, it does.
You're trying to make it sound. At least acknowledge that.
Yes, that's an interpretation. Yes. Okay, now
so
you
for future reference, if you're going to be referencing somebody word for word, quote them word for word, and then say this is what I think he means, because you just looked like a liar a minute ago, and that's not a very good sign, my friend.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, now I would like to hear your interpretation under his works, A.T.P. Robertson, and his word picturing New Testament. When he says through him, DI2 as the intermediate and sustaining agent, what did you get out of that?
Well, why don't we read the whole thing all together like you were just saying a moment ago?
Notice this. When he reads it, he still doesn't understand it. What A.T. Robertson is saying is agreeing with my position. Jesus is not the cause. He's the intermediator. He's the intermediator agent. Watch. He even reads it.
Right? I'll take it through. So the universe, as in Romans 11:35, well-known philosophical phrase, repeated at the end of the verse, in him were created. Paul now gives the reason. For the reason of Christ is in the work of creation. It is the constrative, artist, imperative, passive, indicative, from old verb, found to create. This central activity of Christ is in the work of creation presented. John 1:3, a great verse, by the way. It proves that he is creator of all things. Hebrews 1:2, again a great verse. It is a complete denial of the Gnostic philosophy, well, I can get into that one from Gnostics, right? Get into it. The whole of creative activity is summed up in Christ, including the angels in heaven, everything on earth. God wrought through the Son of His love. All earthly dignities are included, have been created. Perfect, passive, indicative. Stand created, remain created. The permanence of the universe rests. Then on Christ, far more than the gravity. It is a Christocentric universe. Through Him, as the intermediate substantiating agent, He is already used in Him as the sphere of activity unto Him. This is the only remaining step to take, and Paul takes it. See, for similar use, Christ, Colossians 1:19, Colossians 20. Again, we have used of Christ, Colossians 2:10, because of whom, by means of whom, applied God concerning the universe. Romans 11:35, we find referring to God, but Paul does not use in the connection of Christ only, and the same distinction preserved in 1 Corinthians 8:6. Okay, I just want to read the whole thing. Now, your question is you're trying to say in the intermediate.
Real quick, he dismissed what he did. I don't think he understood what he's reading. The last sentence here. But God did not use ek in the connection of Christ, but only en, dia, and eis. See the same distinction preserved in 1 Corinthians 8, verse 6. Ek, the cause, the source, dia, through, intermediate agent of Christ. Ek, again, Kelly, are you listening? Are you listening? Ek means the source, the cause, which is God. Dia of Christ is the intermediate agent. A.T. Robertson is even more specific in 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 6 and also in John 1:3. Let me take you there. John 1:3. By Him, by means of Him as the intermediate agent in the work of creation. The logos in John's explanation of the creation of the universe. The author of Hebrews names God's Son as the one through whom He made the ages. Paul poignantly asserts that all things were created in Him, Christ, and all things stand created through Him and unto Him. Hence, it is not a peculiar doctrine that John here enunciates. In 1 Corinthians 8:6, hear this, Kelly, hear it. Paul distinguishes between the Father as the primary source, ik hu, of all things, and the Son of the intermediate agent as here, de hu. Where do you get that from? What is he saying, Kelly? What is A.T. Robertson saying? Clearly he is saying God the Father is the source. Jesus is not. He's the intermediate agent. How much clearer can you get from that, sir?
Substantiating agent is implying what?
What it says throughout everything you just said.
Notice I paused because I couldn't believe he just read it and he still is in denial. He's in denial. Watch.
He's an intermediate agent that God used to create. He's not the cause. He's the intermediate agent.
He looks puzzled.
I'm not even sure why this is even a discussion. It's within Trinitarian belief.
Well,
God the Father used the Son to create.
Probably just said
It's in
something
the Nicene
right.
Creed.
I think you finally said something right.
This is the Nicene Creed.
You said, why is this even a discussion? You brought it up and tried to use it to disprove something which doesn't disprove anything or prove anything on your point. So,
what was my point, Kelly? Kelly, what was my point? What was my point?
You tell me. What was your point? I'm confused as heck right now. What? You tell me.
Was used for creation.
He couldn't even get this out of his system to even admit this. That God the Father used the Son.
as the intermediate agent.
Well, of course. I would not reject that.
Then why are you arguing with me?
No.
All this for nothing.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
All this for nothing.
Scriptures all over the place.
So you agree?
All three
You agree?
are involved
Jesus
in
intermediate
creation.
agent.
No. Jesus is the source.
Okay.
John
So you
1:3
agree.
literally says, by him all things created. Not one
So-
thing
no,
came
he's
to exist
not.
apart from him.
A.T.
The
Robertson.
logos in the Greek context.
A.T.P.
You
Roberts
know anything
just
about
said
the word
it.
Logos? Logos means the source of all creation.
Yes.
That's what the Greek
He's all over the place now.
John says he is
He's
the
all
Logos
over the
of
place.
all creation. By him, everything was created. Not one thing came to existence apart from him. So if
Kelly,
you want to play the
you just
cause
read-
card, that right there proves the deity of Christ. In
Listen.
fact, Isaiah 44 verse
He's all over the
says
place now.
clearly, Jehovah
Let's look at John
alone
1.
is the creator
Let's
of
go
all
John 1.
things. So if you're going to try to just play word games, the context of Colossians
word games,
1:15 proves firstborn does not mean first to be created. Why? Because he has preeminence
in the
over
genitive
all of
form, sir?
creation because he created.
He still is
all
not
of
answering
creation.
any questions.
You cannot insert
Kelly.
firstborn there to mean first to be created. You can believe it,
Kelly.
but you can't.
Filibustering. Filibustering.
Kelly, is firstborn prototokos in the genitive form in Greek?
What does that have to do with the context of verse 16 and
Has
17?
Everything to do with everything. Do you
Even
not know
Jesus
that's how?
created
That's
all
how. Did you really just say what does that have to do with it? Did you just really say what does that? Wait. You made a point first. You made a point. You
You're
said it doesn't
playing
matter.
genitive games here that has nothing to do with the context. Let the context rule.
Sir, that's how Bible translators determine what words mean.
Yeah, and they
They
also
use
add
the
words that
Greek
don't
case
exist
or
there too,
even-
right?
Yes. Yes. And this is where I wanted to show you, Kelly. In Colossians 1, I believe it's 17. If we look into the Bible that you use of your preference, what is the NASB? Okay, if you look at verse 18, Kelly, are you listening? This is from your NASB, New American Standard Bible. He is also the head of the body, the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself might come to have first place in everything. Do you see something here, Kelly? See that word right there? Himself? It's not in the Greek. It's not italicized. It's not bold in bold. It's just there. And it's not any other Bible. It's not even in the Greek manuscripts. For example, look at the New Revised Standard Version. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. Where's he himself? Why was that added in the text? Certainly it doesn't make any difference, but it's added, Kelly. Doesn't that just crumble your whole? It crumbles your whole argument. You shouldn't add words and blah 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 when you don't even apply to your own Bible standards.
Right?
Your Bible, yeah.
Theology too, right?
Just like your New American Bible did, yeah. And I can show you too. Can I show you that point real quick?
We're
I've been
staying
really
right now where we're at. We're on
okay.
Colossians
let's move on.
1:16 and 17.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Mhm.
That's
you
where we're
already
at.
proved my point, though. You proved my point. You just agreed with me that Jesus is the intermediate agent. Am I correct?
No, Jesus is the cause. He's the source. He's the one who made all things. There's
Oh,
no
okay,
agreeing
so
with
you
what
just-
you're saying there.
Okay, so you disagree with A.T.B. Robertson?
He never.
Listen, the fallacy. This is a straw man argument right here. I said, do you disagree with A.T. Robertson, the fact that Jesus is the intermediate agent? not that he's a creature. I just admitted that A.T. Robertson believes in the Trinity. He's a Trinitarian. I said that. So this is a straw man argument that Kelly is making. I never made such a claim that he's making here.
That Jesus was first team, right?
Listen,
That's
You
where we're
already
at.
proved my point, though.
he ignores my
Point.
question.
You just agreed with me that Jesus
He ignores
is the
me.
intermediate agent. Am I correct?
No, Jesus is the cause. He's the source. He's the one who made all things.
We're referring to what A.T. Robertson said.
There's
Oh,
no
okay,
agreeing
so
with
you
what
just-
you're saying there.
Okay, so you disagree with A.T.B. Robertson?
He never said that Jesus was the first to be created or some kind of created.
And I never said that either. You're not listening, Kelly. You're not listening to my point. You're not listening to my argument. Take those Trinitarian sunglasses off, sir. You're too blind with those.
Never.
My question
Never,
was,
ever, ever.
my question was, you disagree with him that Jesus
I
was
don't
that?
disagree with
Okay. Kelly.
It
Was
proves the
agent
deity of Jesus Christ.
Kelly, was Jesus used for creation?
He doesn't want to answer the question.
Jesus is the very one who created all things, period.
I didn't ask you that. My question was, did the Father use
Hey,
Jesus for
well, let me
creation?
ask you this.
Is
Was the Father
Jesus
used for
the intermediate
creation?
agent?
Hey, was the Father used for creation?
Notice I'm answering his question directly.
He used his own Holy Spirit to
No.
create.
Was the Father used for creation? Was he involved?
Yes, as a source.
So
As
does
a
that
source,
mean?
yes.
So does that mean he's not the creator?
I said the source.
Thinking is because there's no other
There's no other being.
through him.
All right, look. We're gonna wrap up here. We're at.
Wait. Why, Kelly? Why are we
Because
wrapping up? Come on.
We're not gonna go forever.
Let me
We're not
address
gonna
your
go
point,
forever.
please.
Listen.
Let me.
I was getting upset here because I wanted to discuss chapter 1 through 3, and show him also how A.T. Robertson shows that Jesus isn't the source, even though he read it, even though Kelly just read it, but he didn't understand what he was reading. But I wanted to show where he clearly stated that the source was God, and the intermediate agent, Dia Atu, was the Son, Jesus. But he it's his platform, and I just had to respect that.
You're on my station. You're on my channel. You agreed to talk to me. We're not going to go for 3 or 4 hours of babbling back and forth. You've made your points.
Okay.
Listen, you've made your points. Now, if you're right, your point stands, right? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? Wouldn't that be correct?
What you
If
are.
I'm wrong,
but yeah.
I'm wrong, right?
What you are. Yeah, what you are. Yeah.
Okay, well then your point stands. There you go. And I've made my points. So both of us have to make a decision what we do from here, right? Would that be acceptable? I mean, you really did.
Well, that's pretty much the end of the debate. So, is this guy truly a Berean? Well, what do you think? We saw he said I made false accusations about Walter Martin, and we saw what I said about Walter Martin proves true in his own book. We compared what Walter Martin said and compared to the source of where he supposedly got his information. Would a Berean really make that comment that I misrepresented someone when the evidence shows that I didn't? Okay. And the word firstborn, protikises. Where is the evidence that any of these Greek scholars says that the word existed during the time of Jesus or Paul? Where is it, Kelly? We have A.T. Robertson, where he even read it himself, showing that Jesus is not the source. It's God the Father who's the source of all creation. Jesus is an intermediate agent. He doesn't understand the word dia atu. He doesn't understand that. So, is this guy really a Berean? That's a question that just that's the question. Is he really a Berean? Kelly, if you want to continue to have a discussion or a debate, I'm willing to. But I just wanted to have equal time, because here you try to dominate everything, which you probably did as far as time-wise, but as far as information, you did a poor job.